Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Sarah. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we both practice here in Newport Beach, California, specialize in working with eating disorders, families, teens, young adults, kind of a little bit of everything. And we're coming to you today. We have the holidays coming up. We have, I think, something like within the next 60 days, we have probably three of the toughest, four of the toughest holidays for people in general, and especially if you're struggling with an eating disorder. So Sarah and I are going to go over some of the top questions that people often have for us, and hopefully be able to give you some help. So the first question we have is, what are some coping strategies to use when dealing with family? So Sarah, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Yeah. I think the first thing to kind of note is that there's so many great coping strategies, but everybody's different. And so some coping strategies will be so great and others not so much. And so it's going to be this need to kind of experiment and see what works for you and what doesn't. Um, as far as a few different coping strategies, deep breathing, grounding exercises are always some really great go-to ones. Even just kind of increasing your awareness of your surroundings using some mindfulness by kind of engaging your five senses, looking around the room and noticing what you see, what you can like feel against you, whether it's your chair or whatnot, what you can smell, that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, those are all really good. I think it's really important during these holidays to kind of use what you have around you too. Being grew up in a family that had a lot of sports, so I think sports can be a really good distraction during the holidays. We have a lot of major sports. Basketball is going to be finishing up here soon, but you have college football, you have NFL football. Because of the delay, everything going on, you're going to have baseball. So there's a lot of sports to watch on TV, and I always find that to be a really good distraction from, the chaotic experience of being around food and family, and sometimes even like playing sports.
Mhm.
Go and grab a frisbee, go and grab a football, and you can bring that to the party and kind of use that as an opportunity to get um, some action skills in there, and not necessarily sit around and ruminate and ruminate and ruminate, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, the NHL isn't playing right now. That season is kind of on hold. But yeah, there are a lot of really good sports that you can kind of
Yeah.
keep with and are probably playing in the background. I think also, why not like just make use of technology?
Hmm.
We have our phones so close to us. If you're needing to distract and text a friend, do it.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm even thinking like there's been a lot of cool technology games that you can play with other family members too. Things on your phone, um, things where you connect with people long distance, Pictionary. This is an opportunity to get creative and to
Yeah.
not feel like you have to be stuck, somewhere where you don't want to be. It's an opportunity to be around family who sometimes can be a little bit challenging, but it's an opportunity to be creative. And make it kind of a useful skill. Um, Something I always talk about with my clients too is remembering the intention behind the skill, um, because a lot of times we can use a coping skill and it doesn't quite have that same effect because we feel like we're the victim. Because I have to go to this party, I have to do something to cope with it. That kind of puts me in the victim role, as
Mhm.
opposed to, we're going to move into a question about like armor and protection, as opposed to going into it and feeling a little bit more powered. I'm going to this event and I know it could be tough. What
Mhm.
skills can I use to benefit, what I am working on? And so it's remembering like, oh, we have the opportunity to use these skills let me feel empowered by using it as opposed to feeling the victim of it.
Yeah.
So the next thing that kind of comes up, a top question that people have during the holidays are like this idea of armor. So going into a situation a little bit more armored. And I think in this context, I'd like to talk a little bit more about like the food piece, especially. So much of eating disorders is focused on, using communication, not using food as a way to cope or communicate. But Sarah, do you have any tips on like things that people can do to armor themselves, especially, let's say we're going into Halloween and there's, Halloween treats, or we're going into Thanksgiving and we have, the buffet, you just go down the line. I don't know how your family is, but my family's
Oh, yeah.
buffet table is huge.
Oh, yeah.
You
It's
need some
all
plates
there
to get
too.
everything. So what are some armor that clients can take with them, especially regarding their food and eating patterns?
I mean, I think the holidays, like you said, brings up so much because there are so many different food choices. I think one thing that can be helpful to remember is that even though it's so great to challenge yourself with like a piece of pumpkin pie, or, hey, I haven't had, fill in the blank for however long and I want to try it, those things are great. And it's okay to stick with what you're comfortable with. You don't have to like push yourself past what you're comfortable with just because it's this big event or family's going to be watching or whatnot. It's just kind of sticking with, what, I know what I need nutritionally. I know I need to eat, whether you have a meal plan or not. I know I need to have something. Let me go with something that I'm comfortable with.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I totally echo that. I get a lot of clients that, I think have good intentions, but,
Yeah.
maybe load up their plate as a way to impress family members or to show, family members that it's not something they struggle with anymore. But they can
Mm-hmm.
really, be doing some damage to one, their body. If your body's not used to having that food, you're
Yeah.
going to feel really discomfortable and you're going to feel really icky and you're going to have a bad experience with that food. A lot of times when we're introducing foods, we want to have the best experience possible with it so that your body remembers, oh, this was good, this was fun, let's do it again.
Right.
And Thanksgiving holidays, probably not the time to go balls to the wall on that. It's okay to feel more comfortable, have some successes with it, and be
Yeah.
able to kind of enjoy it. I think a lot of times we look at these situations, again, kind of piggybacking on before, and we go into this with such negative expectations and interactions. Like, food can also be fun.
Yeah.
Why not enjoy the foods that are going to be fun with it?
Yeah, I think especially with what's been going on this year, more than likely, I mean, if your family is like mine, the family's gonna be talking about, COVID stuff or the elections, right?
Mm.
Some things that maybe can cause some high anxiety or some distress. If emotion's gonna be, up here, we don't need to make it any higher by saying I'm gonna
Mhm.
push beyond what I'm comfortable with and challenge myself.
Right. Yeah.
Just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to eat what I need to,
Mhm.
and maybe I can try that food later.
For sure. And again, kind of segueing into our next part about like a plan to have successful holidays. I think it's helpful to have a family member, a loved one, a significant other, a friend, a confidant, somebody who can come alongside you with that, especially with
Mm-hmm.
the food piece, to be able to say, hey, this is what I feel comfortable having. This is what feels uncomfortable to me. This is the expectation of what I'm going to have. Some people struggle with, say, overeating. Be able to have an accountability partner of, hey, I'm going to have one plate and this is what I'm going to have. Not that that other person, slaps your hand away or punishes you, but just to have some extra accountability of what what your body needs, and it's no other meal other than it happens to be on the Thanksgiving Day. Um, and so I think, you know, a good plan to have would be to have family members involved in what your plan is, especially around food and you know, those other challenges.
Mhm.
What other plans do you think make clients have a successful holidays with their family?
Um, I think, just before I kind of add my thoughts to piggyback off of what you were saying, it's helpful to just figure out, okay, what do I want them to support me with, like, and
Mm,
how?
mm,
Because when we give like our loved ones clear information, then they don't have to assume. And so saying like, you can, if you see this and you're concerned, you can say this, right? You don't have to be, what we call
mm,
like the food police.
mm,
But just, my mom always says, and I'm sure somebody else said it too, but it's like clear is kind,
mm,
unclear is unkind. So just giving people this very direct way of supporting.
mhm, mhm.
Um, but as far as other ways, are we able to pause really fast?
Sure. So plans on how clients can make it through a successful event, say like Halloween. Halloween is coming up.
Yeah.
Candy, sweets, treats, kind of
Mhm.
everything all over there. How are clients going to be able to have a plan where they can kind of, you know, have this be a successful event?
I mean, I think, it's important to plan, okay, how do I prepare? How do I, have this experience? How do I be present? But also it's important of like the after
Mm,
the Halloween party or whatever it is, where you make sure that you find this space to kind of decompress. Because so often we think about that Halloween party or, whatever family gathering, and maybe there's anxiety building up, building up. And whether it was fun or stressful, like our body still has that like in stored up in us. And so
mhm.
finding a way to decompress afterwards, slowing down, whether it's taking time to reflect and journaling, doing something
Mhm.
to just kind of bring you back down to baseline.
Yeah. I think it's totally appropriate too, especially depending on the setting and the context. If you're looking at like a work event or a school function, it's okay to have like some scripted responses too. If people want to know, you know, what you're eating or what do you think of the food, it's okay to have some prepared things that you can say. I mean, there's simple things that you can say that make people go like, oh, okay, that sounds good, and then you can move on. Vice versa, I often have a lot of clients that will either like refuse to answer the question, which feels kind of weird and off-putting, sometimes socially unacceptable, right? If the host of the party is like, "Hey, do you like the food?" and you don't respond, like that's kind of inappropriate. And so you're
Sure.
going to get some looks, you're going to get some further prompting, or maybe you won't get invited back or something. Um, Especially like even with like family, you know, you have grandma at
Mhm.
a Hanukkah event who wants to know why you're not married or wants to know, you know, what's going on. It's okay to have some responses back like already prepared so that you find yourself feeling more comfortable in the moment. You don't have to come up with something on the spot.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes when I'm on the spot, like I don't say the right things. I don't know what to say. I get put off my game. And if I struggle with, you know, food and eating appropriately, like that's going to totally derail me.
Yeah.
And so I think it's okay to have some responses like that too.
Hmm.
And I think it's also important, like whether you're brand new to therapy or you've been through, you know, years and years of therapy, it's okay to kind of revisit that as well. I know for me, I get clients who will come in just for a couple sessions, like, hey, I got this big event coming up and I want to make sure to have a plan.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing I feel more grateful for and honored to walk somebody through that preparation and being able to, revisit the things that have worked and what hasn't worked. I think a lot of times people are afraid to come in because they feel like therapists are going to, unbox, this huge problem. But a lot of times, especially therapy, it can be really solution focused. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you have anything to share to that either.
I mean, yeah, just how, in DBT, it's that, cope ahead strategy. And it can be this very important tool in relapse prevention. We don't have to go into, all the stuff from the past. It's just, I know this is a hard time. I know that in the past it's brought up this and that. And I just want to be prepared. I know my warning signs, my triggers. How do I get through them in a way where I find success?
Yeah. So we're going to segue into our last couple of points here. The first comes from the client's perspective, or the person who may be struggling with some of these challenges. How to ask for help. Do you have any ideas of how a person who's struggling can ask for help? Anything come to mind for you?
Well, not necessarily how to ask for help, but just, oftentimes I'll have my clients say, I don't know if I should ask for help because I don't want to be a burden, or they have whatever reasoning behind it. And just, we kind of explore, okay, what would it mean to ask for help? How can you do so in a way that's comfortable, but you're also getting your needs met? So figuring out who you can be vulnerable with, who your safe person is, and just, again, being clear and concise of like, hey, this is what I need. And I think also too, just being open to what the other person has to say, if they're available, if they have questions for follow-up, of how to actually support you in the way that you're needing.
Yeah, I'm reminded also in DBT, there's a set of skills called Dear Man, the famous Dear Man skills. The one that stands out for me is kind of the describe. So in general, I think as humans, we're not very good at being descriptive. A really good way of being able to do that is what I call the 5 W's and an H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. So if we can go through those simple points, who is it that needs help? What do you need? Where, when, why, how does that look like? Then people around us have the best chance of giving us what we need because we've been really descriptive. Hey, I need support is not very descriptive. I don't know what support looks like. Does support mean you want me to, grab you a plate of food and just hand it to you? Does support mean you want me to leave you alone? Does support mean you want me to talk to you? I have no idea. And I think the challenge, like you put at first, is sometimes clients don't know what they need. And so it's hard to ask for help if you don't know what you need. And then in the same token, if we're coming at it from a loved one's perspective, I'm at this party or event and I see my loved one struggling, having a hard time getting through it. How can I show them that I love and care about them, but that I'm also there to help for them? Anything come to your mind?
Well, I think, again, I hear loved ones as kind of asking those questions and this concern of, I don't really know how to help. So I don't want to say the wrong thing. And that's a big fear of theirs. They don't want to trigger anybody or make things worse, right? And so I think something that I highlight, or I like to highlight to people, is, if you are seeing a loved one struggling, maybe focus more on what you're seeing emotionally rather than the actual behavior. Like, hey, it seems like you're having a hard time right now. How can I help? Rather than, maybe you should put more food on your plate. Are you not? Or like, hey, I noticed this, right? Because sometimes people can get defensive, and that's, by focusing on the emotion, right? We're focusing on people or like our people, right? And we're
Mhm.
not focusing on the food piece.
Right. Yeah, and maybe their plan was to be a little bit safer, and so maybe they had a snack before the dinner, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they were going to have a snack afterwards. So we don't know sometimes what people's plans are. I think especially as loved ones, you really hit the nail on the head. I tell clients all the time, a lot of times it's nothing to do with the food. It's so much deeper going on. And so as a loved one, it can be hard to give that feedback appropriately because you're concerned and you want to get them that help, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. I tell people all the time, like, you're gonna say the wrong thing. That's okay. I say the wrong thing as a certified eating disorder specialist. It's not about saying the right or the wrong thing. A lot of times it's even just kind of being noticed.
Yeah.
A lot of times people want to just be cared for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not about what you say. It's more about the intention behind it. I care about you, and I want you to have some help. Um, I think, I tend to stick with less is more.
Yeah.
So even just a simple like, hey, I notice you. It seems like you're having a hard time. You know, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And that's it. We don't need to say a whole lot more. Nothing you can do to make it better. Nothing you can do to answer it. You just need to kind of be there.
Yeah, I mean, so often when we see people that we love struggling, it's so easy to jump into like that fix it mode, right?
Yep.
And I think one of the hardest things to remember is like we can't fix it. Like you said, it's just being there.
Yeah.
That's really what the person's needing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
I
And
think,
if you're watching this at home, feel free to pass this on to anyone that you think may be struggling or know is going to have a hard time this holiday season. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. We're on all the social medias at KG Psychological Services of Orange County. You can also find us at www.kgpsoc.com. And thanks.
happy holidays.